to English. And dear colleagues, without further ado, let me pass the microphone, let's say, to Sebastian Dahle, who will be moderating our today's discussion, and invite Pavlo Zhezhnych, who will be participating on our side. So, dear colleagues, the stage is yours. You're welcome. Welcome to Kyiv.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction.
Can we show the audience somehow? No? Just for a moment, so everyone. Yeah, okay, 1 second, because it's quite a lot of people here and. All right, so just to feel the vibe. All right, Sebastian, the stage is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Is there an option that I could screen share for just a minute? Because as you discussed, Alexander, we of course have audiences, not just live, as we saw there in the library, but we also have people that are connected here online, besides the speakers that I see are already all nicely aligned. We also have online audiences following us on Facebook. And of course, with the panel discussion, it will be nice to include you all. So I have prepared a Mentimeter link, so everyone who is following the session can just share their questions, their comments throughout the panel, and in the later part of the panel, we will be taking up those comments and questions. So feel free to scan the QR code and connect. I have also pasted the link to the Mentimeter both in the Facebook and in the Zoom chat, so that you can also just click it there if you're watching online. Otherwise, particularly for the live audiences, feel free to do it now while I'm introducing our panel. So we have 5 very esteemed experts on the panel, which I would go through one by one now to introduce them to you. The first one is Professor Eva Méndez, who holds a PhD in Library and Information Sciences, and she's an expert in metadata. She's a full professor at the Charles III University of Madrid, and she's also there the director of the Open Science Lab Research Group. Eva has been a member of the CORA Steering Board, so the Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment, in the term from 2022 to 2024. And she also was the chair of the European Commission Open Science Policy Platform in the years 2018 through 2020, among quite a multitude of other involvements for open science, which are far too many to list them all here. So we're very happy to have Eva with us. Besides Eva, there's Dr. Joeri Tijdink. He is an associate professor and a PI at Amsterdam University Medical Center. He completed his PhD on the publish and perish research culture in 2015, and his current research focuses on research integrity, reproducibility, research quality, mental well-being, and research culture. And so, in addition to him leading several national and international research projects on how to foster research quality and reproducibility, Joeri is also the author of the book The Happy Academic: How to Thrive and Survive in Academia, which offers guidance to early career researchers navigating this challenging academic environment. Professor Julia Priess-Buchheit is with us. She is an expert in learning, open sciences, ethics and integrity, and social technologies. She is a professor at Kiel University, where she leads the Center for Constructive Educational Science. She coordinates the Horizon Europe project IP4OS, a project on open science and intellectual property. And she previously coordinated the Path to Integrity project. She also very actively supported the European Open Science Cloud in various roles, and she co-founded the Network for Education and Research Quality. With us as well is Dr. Karl Kilbo Edlund, who holds a medical and a philosophical doctorate. He's a postdoctoral researcher in environmental and occupational epidemiology at the Sahlgrenska University Hospital in Sweden. And he is the current Secretariat Coordinator of the European Council of Doctoral Candidates and Junior Researchers, Eurodoc for short, which is the largest representation of researchers in the early stages of their career. And last but far from least is Professor Pavlo Zhezhnych. He's the Vice Rector for Education and Information at Lviv Polytechnic National University. His research interests include relative databases, semantically open information systems, open science, and many others. Pavlo was institutional coordinator of several Erasmus Plus projects, including the Open Practices, Transparency and Integrity for Modern Academia project, Optima for short, and the Supporting Ukraine Through Citizen Engagement at Baltic Universities, Baltics4UA projects. And he's very heavily involved as well in science policy and open science at the national level in Ukraine. So welcome all to our speakers. I'll stop screen sharing now so you can see our speakers, our panelists. And with that, I would kindly ask for our panelists to start with a round of opening statements that will lay the ground for the panel, because we have already seen, those that were following the forum so far, how much has been developed, what's the current status for open science, specifically all that has been developing in Ukraine. We also had the previous presentation on the opportunities, how open science can be a tool to foster change, to foster research impact, and so much more. So we're having a status quo. A lot of things are being established. But with this panel, we're thinking now about the future. Where is it headed? What lies ahead? What's currently developing? What are big pending issues? Or what are even aspects or directions that we're not even thinking about just yet? And so with such a nice and diverse panel, it will be really great to hear from your opening statements what your particular perspective and experiences tells you. Where do you see the future? So let's go in the same direction as I presented our speakers, and give the word first to Professor Eva Méndez.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Good. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for having me in Kiev. It's so nice. And I didn't understand very much of the conference because I was connected and listened to some Ukrainian words, but I understood at least data stewards and open science and EOS and some keywords that they are going to be in the scene in the next 10 years. The question about being the first to speak is that I have the privilege to set up the scenario, but also thinking about the future. For those that we have been working on open science for the last 15, 20 years, is something like thinking about, well, we will keep doing the same and just trying to advocate for open science and keep going. I would like to have open science just as a default thing. I don't want to be an open scientist, a hero person that is a hero in the science world and is trying to avoid the journal impact factor and these kind of things. I don't want more heroes for open science and want all the researchers to be open scientists. And of course, the key issue is the research assessment and also how we trust in science. The problem about the current closed system is that it's unaffordable in terms of keep paying, and also the lack of reproducibility, the lack of quality. It makes a big challenge for science to believe in science, for citizens to believe in science. So I think this is a core business that we have to work on. The openness could not be just openness, but quality as such. Because in my opinion, I always say that openness is an invitation to quality. So we have to open it up everything. And when we are in the open, the scrutiny of the society in science will be better. Also, I want to point out another two crucial topics. I have more things just in my notes, but another crucial topic is the open infrastructures. We cannot create open science if the infrastructures that will allow us to be open, they are closed. We don't want more black boxes of Clarivate, of all these kind of things that we pay for numbers. And the worst thing is that we believe it. I think science has done a big mistake in the last 20 years, which is giving the credit to external partners, to for-profit organizations, given the externalizing the duty of evaluating. We have to address back again, and scientific will and the researchers have to control the open infrastructures. For sure, last but not least, I want to include two main topics that have been in a conference in Ukraine and listen to Ukrainian. I think we need open science to be globally inclusive and multilingual. And we are victims of the English as a dictatorship, but we are victims not of the English. We love to communicate ourselves in English. We cannot be here if it wasn't for the English. But we are committed to publish in English because the main journals are in English. So I think this is something that we have to liberate, and we have to be inclusive and multilingual. And the last thing is, I don't want to put the elephant in the room, of course, and I'm sure that you have talked about this in the morning, is artificial intelligence. The AI generative is changing our world. I said that the World Wide Web, in 30 years, changed every single thing in our lives. The way we shop, the way we connect to each other, the way we have a new boyfriend, whatever. Every single thing except the way we communicate and we evaluate science. I don't want to see how artificial intelligence is changing every single thing in our lives in 3 years, except the way we communicate science and the way we evaluate science. We cannot put a finger in the sun and say, well, artificial intelligence is here, but we keep working in English and we keep posting 1 million stupid papers that nobody can have the opportunity to read because we don't have time. Even with the help of artificial intelligence, we cannot keep producing waste science. We have to be aware that perhaps we need to communicate in a different way. So this is my big scenario for the future, not for the 10 years. In terms of artificial intelligence, I think it will be much shorter, the change. And we have to stop communicating science than in the 19th century. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva. Joeri, what are your thoughts out of your experiences in Amsterdam and beyond?
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you all hear me? Okay, thank you so much for the invite. It's a pleasure and also a great honor to be part of the project as well, and to have done some work on the project, which I will allude to in a minute. And I'm also very grateful to be here and to share my perspectives, and I hope you find them valuable, or at least inspirational, or maybe even unconventional. So the thing is, with open science, the big pending issue is it's not longer the question of if we need open science, but how we're going to implement open science. And I think this is such a big achievement already. If you look back 10 years ago and now, open science is there. It will not, and it's there to stay. It will not go away anymore. I mean, this is part of our research life. And but still, the pending issues are then one, and I think this is some of the things that I'm still very concerned about. The uptake of open science practices remains very low. Of course, open access is there. I think we did a lot there, but institutional and individual efforts have not changed the behaviors of researchers yet. There is a persistent attitude behavior gap. And also the epistemic diversity, one of our points in earlier projects, play a crucial role there, because in one discipline, it's completely different than in other disciplines. The second thing is that although we do put a lot of efforts in the research assessment reform, I think it's also stuck in implementation. We still don't, we are working on it, but it's not there yet that we actually are assessing researchers on their open science practices and on their open data, on their open methods, etc. So this is something that is still a pending issue. And I think the publishing system, although there have been a lot of differences, it's still not fixed. It's still the author pays model for so many different roles. I mean, still, and it only believed to widen the gap between the global north and the global south. So these are the issues pending. So the upcoming hot topics. Well, Eva already alluded to this, AI and open science. I'm not going to take it again, but I think this is a hot topic, and this will stay for the coming years. And that we should formulate a response to it. The second one, and I'm preaching for my own choir a little bit, and it's my hobby, or research culture. I mean, research culture is increasingly seen as a crucial lever to foster open practices, while often overlooked at the moment. I mean, they are crucial for making this uptake work. And I think we also need more open infrastructures, although we are developing it. And then the third question, so what is now largely left out? And I would like to highlight two things there. One, and this is something, is research waste. Why are we not talking about research waste in the agenda, or the open science agenda? Because it's so relevant. The connection between poor reproducibility, publication bias, and wasted resources is so much well documented in literature, but it has not been picked up by the open science community. And I think this should be a priority, right? Because open science and research waste, now it's the time that we can do. And in further thinking about this research waste, then we should think about the societal impact question, right? We are not talking enough about the societal impact of our work and how open science can actually really contribute to this. So those are the two things that I was thinking of when we're talking about things that are still left out and that I think are helpful for future discussions. And although it was not mentioned, I was part of the project, and together with Alexander and with Barbara, we did a wonderful work on actually asking Ukrainian researchers about the future of open science in Ukraine. I think it's marvelous work. Hopefully we're going to present this, or publish about this work, and I hope that Alexander is also alluding to this in today or tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the insights. Then, following these call to action, Julia, what are your insights out of your various involvements from EOS to all the different educational sciences?
Yeah, first of all, thank you that I can be here. It's very interesting for me to see what's happening in the Ukraine and also with my colleagues. Yeah, it's difficult to add something new after Eva and Joeri. So from my perspective, you said it's an educational perspective. So it's I'm always looking at open science in a way of, okay, how do we develop as a research community in which, where do we want to go? It's more like the aim of what do we want to reach. And I think what we are sometimes missing in all these discussions is why are we doing it? So open science is such a term which we throw around, like it is easily to understand, but actually I don't think it is easy to understand. So for me, open science actually is more or less the equivalent of doing research. So doing research in a modern time, with tools we do have at hand now, which we didn't have at hand 20 years ago or 30 years ago, or sometimes 10 years ago. And it is about making reliable research. So we want to produce something which is reliable, which can be used by either other academics, or by the society, or by enterprises, or whoever is the person who is then afterwards going to use it. And I think this is something, this has something to do with the ethos of being a researcher. We should sometimes just make clear again, and in all the universities, I think it's also important to teach that to students if they want to be researchers. This is a big part. Yes, because then it's actually quite easy to explain what we could do. I'm with Joeri. It's very difficult then to do it afterwards, because then there are a lot of challenges. So we can look at the numbers in Europe, and we see that there's a huge difference in open infrastructures. So some countries and some institutions have everything at hand, which is possible now. I make the example now of CERN. You look at it, and they have more or less everything they want. As a researcher, if you're there, you can be really as open as possible. If you are in a small institution somewhere, this might not be true for you. So I think we do have to take into account where these people, where are they situated? What's the context? And on a European level, we have to have a look that we balance all of this in a sense of to make also the infrastructure open to be used by others. This is a big discussion, which is also going on in EOSC, in the sense of, okay, when we now open up our infrastructures, how do we organize that? So this is an interesting next step we have to solve somehow. In my case, I'm in the last few years, I'm very much looking at the the transfer sector we have, like in where we really looked at when research goes out into the world. So there are two big pictures. So we have the research which goes out as dissemination, as knowledge to more or less the world. And then we do have research which goes out to enterprises, to startups, or now we have the big word defense, and dual uses. So I do think a topic which will be discussed in the next few years is intellectual property in open science. So IP4S is already a project on it. However, I can tell you we are at the beginning. We more or less have no European regulation. It's like scattered all over the place. There is no joint vision. So this is something we will have to discuss as a research community, what we want and how we want to organize it. There are some people who really vote for open. So it's not open innovation in a typical sense. It's to be open with everything we have so that we can support also our industry and enterprises. And I actually really like this idea. So it is the idea to transfer what UNESCO already described a few years ago for research, why we do open science, and transfer that into a more general thing, so that also open science really makes sense to support countries and their sovereignty. This is a topic I would like to discuss in the future. And there are a lot of tools which are coming up now, for example, to make your research you're doing or your research results able to be taken by AI. So AI is actually turning around a lot of things. There's going to be a study on open science and AI, which will be presented on the 9th of July in the European Parliament. And it's interesting to look at it because the authors, I was one of the authors, and we tried to find first the main risks which are running into, and I think they're quite clear for everybody who is doing research. But what we try to do is also to show, okay, which policy decisions or which research community decisions could help us to make AI as fruitful as possible. And that's what Eva said, for research, because it has a great potential. We just have to create the environment so that it really helps us to make research as reliable as possible. These are a lot of topics. So I think we will stay in contact and we will stay in dialogue. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Julia. Indeed, much too much to cover in just the one single session of a panel, but a lot to draw already from. One particular thing that's, of course, very important is the view of early career researchers, because they are most impacted by all the changes that are coming up. And I'm looking forward to what Karl has to say about all these things.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. And it's a pleasure and a great honor to be here and to take part in this discussion. I think it's an important discussion, not least, as you say, Sebastian, from a perspective of an early career researcher. Just as a short background, Eurodoc is, as Sebastian mentioned, the main representative of early career researchers in Europe, with 28 member organizations across 25 countries. We're in Ukraine, represented by our member is the Young Scientist Council. And from an ECR perspective, I wanted to address three different topics or three main questions here. I think the first question is the training in open science practices, and that we ensure that there is an implementation of training in these practices within both in doctoral training, but also available for other early career researchers, both pre and postdoctoral researchers, get a formal training in open science practices, because to a large extent, doctoral and research education is a socialization process, and if we do not have systematic training that is implemented that becomes, it preserves old pre-open science practices. And we need to break that cycle by providing the tools for early career researchers to take up open science practices. And I know that both the Optima and the Open4UA projects have pioneered various training programs, that those are also implemented and rolled out on a larger scale to ensure that there is uptake of practices and that it doesn't stay as a goal, but actually is taken up in hands-on practices, because the ECRs are doing, if not the majority of hands-on research, and they need access to these practices. As a second point, I wanted to address open researchers assessment, and a lot of things have been said already on open researcher assessment, and very wise things have been said already on the topic. But I also wanted to have the highlight angle where we talk a lot about open researcher assessment, but it is so important that we deliver on those promises as well, because otherwise early career researchers end up in a situation where certain openness and transparency in recruiting is promised, but not delivered when it actually comes to recruitment processes. And we need to deliver on that promise by actually implementing and making sure that that there is peer review, that there is transparency, that there is judicious use of quantitative indicators in the actual recruitment processes. And the third is, we have mentioned early career research, and I've done it myself as a target audience for uptake of open science practices. But I also wanted to highlight early career researchers are drivers of open science practices, and actually that many of the open science practices that we talk about have been pioneered by early career researchers, and many of the people here involved today are or have been early career researchers when they have started to engage with open science practices, and that this is not, that the early career researchers are not purely a target audience or an uptake audience of open science practices, but also actually creators and drivers of them, and implementers, not least, of these practices. So training, research assessment, and drivers of open science. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karl. And then let's also get to Pavlo and your insights specifically with the situation in Ukraine and with all your experiences working both inside and outside Ukraine with open science.
Thank you. Thank you, Sebastian. It's my pleasure to participate in the discussion. I would like to speak from a Ukrainian perspective, and being in person here in Kyiv, it's very difficult to ignore the context of war. If the war is stopped, or we all hope it will finish with a fair peace for Ukraine, the consequences for science will remain: damaged infrastructure, security risks, displaced universities, interrupted careers, and large science diaspora. So for Ukraine, open science is not only about openness and transparency, but it's also about research continuity, recovery, and human resilience. We should not treat open science as a regulatory reform or technological reform. It must also be a human reform that changing our mind, our perception of science, of research processes, of research outputs. This approach supports researchers, their skills, careers, and international integration. All of you know, remember the basic principle of open science: open as possible and close it as necessary. Unfortunately, this principle works in ideal world, and in our case, it should be extended with the phrase safe and resilient by design. I would like Ukraine to be fully integrated into the European research area as an active contributor, and open science should be considered as a bridge that shortens the path to the European future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pavlo. For the audience, let me remind you, there's the Mentimeter channel where you can post all your questions and your comments, so feel free to do that. Again, the links are in the Facebook and in the online sessions chat, so please make use of it. If I try to synthesize from all the different statements that we heard now in the opening, all the very many different aspects, my feeling is that for the big pending issues that we heard, that they all have, or the majority of them have something in common. And that is sort of revolving around the implementation. But I would like to offer maybe for the first round, for the first question and discussion round, I would like to offer a different perspective. Very often, of course, we think about open science in this kind of constructivistic approach, like Julia mentioned. What do we want to reach, and then how do we get there? And in many ways, we're talking about this either in a way of we need to foster things, we need to support things. Eva talked about open science, that really we shouldn't make those practices of open science single heroes, but really open science needs to become a default. We all know and understand how important the open accessibility of research, of scientific work is, not just for the publication, also for the data, for the infrastructure, and all the different other aspects we heard. While on the other hand, we heard in a couple of ways how this should be included in research assessment. Now, in an analogy, I would maybe point you to the traffic on the roads. So we're driving forward in our scientific endeavor, like we're driving our cars. And if we take this analogy, I mean, nobody is awarding medals just for sticking to the speed limit or sticking to the rules, right? On the other hand side, I wouldn't necessarily be in favor of streets where every 100 meters you have the radar, so to make really sure that everyone is sticking to the rules. I think we're competent enough to do it in a sufficient way. It's good to have them maybe in certain areas of higher risk, higher accident rate or whatnot. But this complete surveillance also, or making sort of a police state system, wouldn't really be the good approach. And the same thing I find holds true for the science. On the one hand side, making everyone heroes for practice that should be standard maybe isn't the right way. It's a good way to foster things. It's a good way to also have awards. Yes, sure. On the other hand side, then also just doing all the policing, having this everywhere just in the assessment for things that you might expect as a standard anyway, maybe is also doing some overkill. Yes, there should be some things there. So we should find a really good way to get to a good culture that includes the training, again, with the analogy. In the street traffic, of course, we first train before we let loose, right? And the training needs to be up to temporary standards. And so if I go through all the things that have been said, in a way, this all revolves about the same kind of thing. How do we get the implementation going and the culture change going? And with that, maybe with the analogy offering sort of a different perspective than in many other discussions, I would like to hear the speakers' thoughts about how do we get it going then? How do we get it as default? How do we really foster the cultural change? How do we see this, that we come to the future that you have so beautifully described? So what are your thoughts on that, maybe with this perspective change? Anyone feel free to jump in.
Would you like me to start again?
Anyone who feel free to jump in. Eva, you go.
Yeah. Julia raised a hand first. Go. Okay. Well, no, just a quick comment on how to make it. I mentioned to my doctoral candidates course the last week at the declaration or whatever it was at that time under the presidency of the Council in the Netherlands in 2016. There was a document and it was entitled "The Call for Action." So we have been 10 years calling for action. And we still are thinking, what are the things that we have to do that are real action in open science, further than declarations and recommendations and statements? And I think the crucial thing here is that of course, it works better in general, the stick than the carrot for the promotion of open science. But the point is that not the stick of the carrot work if there is just a 0-1 option. Do you have, I mentioned lately that I have been looking at the 280 something action plans of COARA. They are there. But it's the same thing that happens that when you have to have a gender equality plan to apply for European funding. The point is that you have a gender equality plan? Yes. So you can apply. You have a COARA action plan? Yes. You can keep looking forward that you're practicing and you're changing open science. But the problem is that having an action plan, having an equality plan, having a plan is not implementing plan. This is what I call gender washing. And nowadays I call also COARA washing. So I think instead of arguing about we need a plan, no, we need action. We need institutions that really put on the middle of the research the way they change the society, not the way they change the figures. And of course, the problem is that all generations, probably you heard me this many times, Sebastian, that I do really believe in the world and in the work that early career researchers can do. The good news is that it will change. The bad news is that it not will be easy. So Karl and other researchers that they are early career researchers, they have to manage and to juggling between publishing things that they will just be recorded for the career and trying to be open, that is the by default situation. But I think we need not an action plan, not a binary 0-1, we do, we don't do, but an action really for sure. And just showing up to the society.
I think Julia was the first one then to get the hands up.
I'm gonna put it down, but okay, thank you. Yeah, I found your analogy with not driving very interesting. So actually, I used this analogy once too. I just remembered, and I think there was one piece missing in your analogy, and actually is that yes. So we can decide if we control or we see the sanctioning. Yeah, and when we look into Europe, it's interesting. Yeah, when you speed in Norway, believe me, it's my experience. It's very expensive. Yeah, when you speed in Germany, it's not good too, but it's not as expensive as it is in Norway. Yeah. So, and I do know that there are sociologists who actually look into this, like how this different sanctioning is working. So maybe we do need that. Yes. And I'm with you. We do not need overboarding sanctioning, but we need sanctioning when it is dangerous. Yeah. And the same goes also for supporting and pushing. Yeah. And also training. So, and then it's perfect to have this example because we do training in really how to drive. So you sit in the car and there's somebody next to you. Yeah. So we do need training in how to do research with open science practices. So, and there needs to be somebody who overlooks that and helps you. Yeah. But then we also have the theory in how to drive. So, and we also do that, but only to a very small part often. It's about what is research, yeah, that we learn about research and why we are doing it. That was my argument at the beginning, yeah, in our opening statements. But there's actually a third part, And I think we forget about that very often, that in research, we are also building the streets. Yeah, and that's the difference. We as drivers, or me, I never built a street, a road here, yeah, and I don't want to, and I will not, I guess. However, in research, we are a research community which builds the own environment. Yeah, we have a high influence in how our environment is. That's why we are so shocked right now with the AI, because we do know it's not built, it's not really built by us. It's a different system which builds it, and we are using it. Yeah. So there is a third training, yeah, or a third aspect, and this is who am I as a research, as a subject in the research community, and what are my responsibilities? And I do think actually we are forgetting that quite often in training. But we should, yeah, because that makes us clear that we are the community, yeah. We do need help from other stakeholders. We cannot do it by our own. We need policymakers because most of us depend on tax money, yeah. So we have to have good arguments, yeah. We have to have an idea, and we have to build the environment. So I do think we should focus also on that.
Joeri.
So yeah, I think it's a $1 million question, and that has not one answer that is correct, and that will save us all and let us live happily ever after. So, but I do think that in the past 5 years, we talked a little bit more about culture change, and what Brian Nosek pointed out righteously in his pyramid is that you need several things. You need policy, right? And I think in the case of Ukraine, policy is being developed in this project, for example. You need also incentive structures. So you need to reward researchers. You need communities to spread the word, to share insights, share monitoring mechanisms, for example, that can help you in the incentive structures. You need infrastructure currently being built in so many levels, not only in education, but also in research, but also in sharing practices. And you need a good user experience, that it will be easy actually to implement. And this is not a menu that you can choose 3 and that you can skip to. You need them all. And that's the complexity of implementation. And I don't like the analogy with the road, because I think it's not, I'm just teasing you a little bit, Sebastian. I would like to go for the analogy of the sheep and the shepherds, because I think researchers are sheep. And I think what they need is a shepherd that tells them how to use open science practices, how to implement it, how to use them in infrastructures, how the good sheep will get rewarded in being close to the shepherd, and this will slowly, gradually improve. And since the next speaker will probably be the person from Eurodoc, Karl will be there. I think shepherds are young. They're not gray and old. They are young. And we need those young shepherds that will lead the herd and will show us the way how to actually make open science the default. And that will eventually cause culture change. So, and besides, I mean, cars and roads, do we really need them? I think we need sheep and shepherds. Thank you.
Thanks. Karl, go on.
Thank you. And I just wanted to highlight sheep with academic freedom is something that we want. And I do think academics have a strong opinion and a strong expertise to be independent as well in their in how they implement. But I agree to a certain extent that even if researchers have a strong competence and a strong will, the implementation is very often dependent on external factors, for good and for bad. had a lot of research is directed by the research funding organizations, and we need for successful implementation, we need research funding organizations to be on board with open science practices, and I think that is the key to ensure a good uptake of research funding practice. And I wanted to point out since previous panelists had mentioned the European funding instruments, I wanted to highlight the Marie Curie Sklodowska actions as a good example of implementation of open science practices. And where open science practices are both in the individual fellowships, but also in the doctoral networks implemented as key parts of the application. And I think that is a practice that can definitely and should definitely be mirrored more on the national level. And that is very sparsely implemented, is my experience, on the national level in the national funding instruments, which fund the absolute majority of early career researchers are not European funded, by national funded, and in those systems open science is not as prominently featured. And then higher education institutions need to meet the requirements that the funders set by providing training that correspond to what the researchers need to fulfill the criteria of the funders. And it's a very cynical perspective, I agree, but I think that the dynamic here is that research funders need to take a step forward, and higher education institutions will follow to fulfill the criteria set out by the funders.
Thanks. Pavlo, is there anything you want to add to the round?
I think that open science implementation has at least two dimensions. So one is changing our legislation or regulation documents, and we listened to our ministry representatives, and we can conclude that probably our regulatory reform is fastest in the world. We made impossible jump from something like minimal regulations and documents to national plan, to a new methodology of research assessment of at the institutional level. Now our ministry presented us several policy document, and this process is just intensificating. And another dimension is a culture, and this is the main problem of Ukrainian research community. But the projects like Open4UA or previous project Optima are oriented to increase our awareness of open science practices, but we need some more things. First of all, we need to put open science at the core approach in our state research assessment, and also we need to build some, let's say, ecosystems for our research community that help us, that will help us to cultivate open science culture for young researchers that help us, will help us to implement open practices in our institutions and our activities.
Thanks a lot. I think if we move into the future and look further ahead, there's a couple of things that are often brought up against open science. If we start with a big mantra that there has been in Europe, as open as possible. And I would invite you to drop the second part of the mantra that you find in the internet, because there's then so often brought up things that are held against open science. Yes, we want to be open, but no, here we see security risks. Yes, we want to be as open as possible. Yeah, but this is something that we want to commercially use, so don't put this out anywhere. Yes, we want to be open, we want to be inclusive, but this here thing is mine, right? So there's very often we start with as open as possible, but then everything is held up against, and maybe not always in a way that really is necessary against. On the contrary, we heard as in the opening statements phrased as upcoming topics that are already being started to use or are already being used and are really developing much more in these days. These are really that open science is not against, but is actually or can be fostering safety. Open science can be fostering, can be the way to resilience. It can be the way to quality. It can also be the way paving the pathway for commercial exploitation. There's so many things where really open science is being held up as a hindrance, but could actually be made the enabler. And so with that, you all mentioned topics in this direction. How do you see this? How do we get there that we use open science as the enabler instead of just holding up those exemptions that we see as a negative? Yes, Julia.
Yes, and I think these are two very different mindsets you just described. Yeah. So the one mindset, which is the new one, is being open is a benefit. Yeah. It's like it will help me. Yeah. And it will help my group. It will help my region, and so on. In what more or less in whatever I'm doing in the project. And the other mindset is, I invent something or I find knowledge, yeah, and I have to protect it with my heart because that's my benefit, yeah. And as soon as it leaves me, my value also sinks. So I actually do think this is a cultural change, and it's very difficult. So and it's interesting to see when you speak to people. It's more a reaction. There is no rational thought behind it. It's more a reaction of from which culture they are coming. They react. Yeah, So I cannot share my idea because then I lose my position or whatever. Yeah. What works in little steps, yeah, is to give examples and to show examples, which then show, oh, this is a complete success story, yeah, and they share it from the beginning. So there is because I also read in the chat that this sounds more like not doing research, but more like being entrepreneurs. And I hear that often, and I actually do think, and the question is for me also a little bit, okay, where is the difference? Yeah, so and I do understand. So I think there's a huge difference between doing basic research and doing also applied research. So in Germany, we have this distinction, even in universities, we have the University of Applied Sciences, and in these universities, everything sounds a little bit like doing business. Yeah. But from this world, actually, I do know a lot of stories. So there is one story coming from the biomedical field, yeah, because the biomedical researchers often work with pharmaceutical enterprises together. And normally their intellectual property is highly, highly protected. That means they even have sometimes to sign trade secrets in research, which is, if you look from outside and come from a different field, it's like, you're doing what? Yeah. But so this was the traditional way to do it. But then there were like 2 or 3 consortia. And when you are from the biomedical field, you already know that, which said, okay, we are not going to treat that as a trade secret. We are going to treat it very openly. We are sharing our knowledge from the beginning. because we are looking into rare diseases, yeah? And actually there is no competition in building a pill for rare diseases, yeah? So what they showed us that they're, by being open, they were like not twice fast, but 3 times faster, yeah, than before. And others could take up their knowledge in a better way, so that the exchange, yeah, and the development of the knowledge of this rare disease could spread very easily. So what I want to show with this example is I think we have to find and show that it really works. It works. So open science practices work, yeah. And I'm with you, yeah. So the second part of as open as possible, we have now as secure as possible added often in my field. Doesn't make a lot of sense. It just reminds us to be mindful and rational. But I do think actually we all are that. You know.
Joeri.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit hesitant to embrace the sentence as open as possible, because it gives researchers a reason not to be open. So I would say open, not to be open, full stop. And then only be not open when you have justified arguments. And the arguments should not be that other research groups can use your data, or I have to protect privacy because you can share data without any privacy related information, right? So I think we should be way more progressive in how we talk about open science, and that it is the norm, it is the status quo, and that you can only not comply with the norms of open science when you actually have very good arguments. For example, in the defense industry, right? I think it's very justified not to share your data. But if you say as open as possible, it's so sweet, and then all researchers would feel, well, okay, then I'm not going to share because it's as possible, yes, but preferably not, because there are many barriers not to do it, and those barriers are not always justified. So I would rephrase it to as open. Just be open unless I have very good arguments of not being open. Thank you.
Eva, go.
I think we all agree here that we don't like that caveat of as open as possible, as protected as necessary, because it came just a double game, and it's not a big consistency of what openness should be. Is what Julia was saying. Open is good and is proven, and all the meta research for open science that we do is to prove that open science is better than closed science. But of course, open science never meant to be opening in a naive way. Everything has to be open without context, whatever. No, we open what we can do open, which is the publications, metadata, infrastructures, protocols, methodologies, and we close the things that should be closed: personal data, dual research, sensitive data, cybersecurity data. But now with this, the new trend of following up this dual thing of as open as possible, as close as necessary, is now I have recently having different conversations about open science versus research security. And I think it's a new way to have the same argument. Well, not open everything, so it's not being reluctant. I think we have to aim for security could not be a new way to be a new way for opacity. I mean, security is not opacity, and we have to work on this openness as a good thing, with, of course, the security issues that we can, of course, governed this transparency. I think it's a question of governance instead of a question of let's close everything. Because if not, we have been working on open science for the last 20 years, and now the solution will be closing it up and everything. No, I think we need a real governed transparency and a absolutely a way to combine security of the things that they should be secure with the openness and make things happen better.
Anyone else want to jump in and react?
Sebastian?
Yes, go, please.
First of all, I would like to say that openness is a key to our communication. So if we implement open practices in our activities, we all speak one language. We understand each other. We can easily collaborate. We can generate new ideas as a team, and next we can work on projects like Open4UA. The second thought is about restrictions. The consortium of Open4UA project developed a draft law on open science in Ukraine, and there are some restrictions for publishing open data, especially if researchers conduct some investigation in Miltech. The gathered data should not be published openly, especially during the war time. Another thing is about infrastructures. I and my colleagues visited our European partners, and they showed us, for example, huge data center, modern, that is located on top floor of the high building. This is normal for Europe, but in our case, if we openly show the information about such infrastructure, it will be a target for the next air attack on Ukraine. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you very much. We are slowly already approaching the end of the session. It's a quarter of an hour, 50 minutes is still left. We do have a couple of questions also in the Q&A online. Some of them have been implicitly answered or partially addressed, but maybe we can have a quick one or two sentence comments on at least two of them. One online member is asking that the EU system of open science and research assessment isn't necessarily unique, and this is asking if we maybe don't pay enough attention also to other systems. He or she writes about China. We might also add Africa, South America, where a lot of things are developing. So what's your thoughts on this, or your insights there?
Can I chime in?
Yes, please go. Please go.
This is another thing that when you keep working at the European level and all things you are based in Europe, your contextual connection is Europe, but open science is not an invention of Europe. We address it, and we have some support on the COARA initiative. The European Commission supports the Research Data Alliance. The European Commission supports policies, etc. But it's not a European invention. I always say that open access was invented in Latin America, and the diamond open access was invented there because they need it. I mean, it's a survival question. So I think we have to learn from each other and make the open science system global, and particularly the research assessment reform should be global, because if not, we are going to close the mobility of the researchers. If I want to apply for a Fulbright fellowship in the United States, and they will evaluate me with the journal impact factor, and in Europe I'm evaluated for the social impact of my research of sharing my data, is something that is not working. So the changes will be global, and we need to learn from each other, particularly Africa and Latin America. They are key players on openness, imagination, I will say.
It's going to be a big effort to align so much when we see how much efforts it already costs in Europe. But for sure, it's a very, very worthwhile question and comment. Yes, Karl, please come.
I think it's also worthwhile to reiterate what we discussed in the beginning, that open science is also a quality mechanism, and we should not see it as a an opening for competition, but rather as a way of creating the best science. And with the best science, we will benefit. Yeah, connecting open science to quality, I think, is important as well in this discussion.
There's a second question that I would like to give to the panel. Someone writes here, is community work incentivized now, or how should we acknowledge this work properly?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Can you elaborate a bit more, or can the person who address it?
I would understand community work with all the different roles and coming together with multiple people, not being so much on your own kind of successes or the whole sharing kind of part. Joeri had the hand up first, I think.
Yeah, that's right. So what of course, I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but how I feel it is that we should reward collaboration, actually. And I think that's what we actually have to talk about, because how can we not reward individual researchers? We have such a individualistic perspective on academic success, such an individualistic perspective on publications and on recognition awards. And I think we should go towards recognizing teams that could do good work. And well, recently we had actually success with a team that we decided we're not going to write individual proposals for a grant scheme, but we're going to write it together. And we review each other's applications. We wrote two, and both got funded because we collaborated instead of being competitive. And I think this collaboration is something crucial, and also in terms of implementation. So if I can, since we're heading towards the end, what I like so much about this project, and specifically about Alexander and his team, is that based on this first success of collaborating, we started collaborating in other projects as well. And then you share knowledge, then you learn from each other, and I think that is the true reward of communities and of rewarding collaboration, is that you. Of course, you need to have money to be successful, but in essence, it's about that is the reward, that you can collaborate, that you can learn from each other, that you advance knowledge, and that you be there together instead of that you be there by yourself. So, having said this also includes with make sure that in projects or in publications that you are rewarding communities and collaborations. But the same for data sets. Publishing data sets is a joint effort. Publishing open methods, even GitHub accounts, it's a mutual effort, and that we should reward in so many different ways than just individual, but as a community or as a collaboration. Thank you.
Thanks, Karl.
I think it's a very important question, and I agree with that. We don't value collaboration enough, and especially I think it connects to what we've talked about previously on research assessment systems. That research assessment systems need to award a more diverse set of outputs, not just publications, not just H-index or impact factors that we are over-reliant on, but also providing benefits through research to society. But I also think it connects to the majority of early career researchers will eventually have a career outside of academia, and this is also a way of transferring open science practices and research transparency and a way of working and seeing knowledge, a more modern way of working and seeing knowledge as a communal good and as something that is better in the open, also to other sectors, so that we are not seeing open science solely as an academic practice, but as a knowledge practice that applies equally to academic and non-academic sectors.
Thank you very much for all the good insights there. We're really slowly running out of time, and so unfortunately we can't take any much more of the questions. There are still worthwhile questions there that might be discussed, but probably in a different place or in a different setting. For the end of the session, I would invite all of the speakers, everyone, to give a very short closing comment. Looking at the time, it would be great if you have one sentence, either as a call to action or a summary of the session. One sentence, one thing you would like to give us on the way home as we get out of the session. So maybe go back in by original order. So Eva. You're muted. While Eva is trying to unmute with some, it seems, technical issues, let's for now jump to Joeri.
Yeah, okay, so you put me here on the spot. So you want to have one sentence that is inspirational, that helps us, and that will solve any problem. I think that's quite a complex. So what my take on this is that we can, I think the good thing is we cannot go back anymore. We cannot go back to old school research. Open science is here to stay. And we need to make the best of it as fast as possible. However, change goes slow, and I really believe that. Well, this is also a hobby horse, but I really believe the key for success of change lays in the early career researchers. So we need to invest in them, make sure that they do the new practices properly, that they share data, that they invest in open science practices and show it to their senior colleagues and teach them a little bit how important it is. And don't give up, never give up on open science practices, because you're right and your old supervisor is wrong. And please keep that in mind.
Sorry, I could activate my sound again. I don't know what happened. Thank you so much. I think I can agree more with Joeri. Your advisor is wrong. You are right. This is the key message for the early career researcher, and I love it. I will implement it to my doctoral students. But I also want to conclude a bit more on the discussion that we had before about the as open as possible, as close as necessary research security against open science. And I think my message here is that we cannot allow research security to become an excuse for closing knowledge. So that will not make science safer. It will be less generous and less transparent. So, of course, there is a geopolitical risk, but it's not the answer. It's not abandon open science. The answer is make openness more mature, more intelligent, more governed, and probably more resilient. But the openness is there and it's here to stay, whatever it happened in the geopolitical scenario, in the security, in the infrastructures, or whatever. And yes, your advisor is wrong. Love it.
Thank you, Eva. Julia, please.
Yeah. So when I reflect on the session and all my colleagues said, I think what I heard also is that it's very context sensitive. So we are all in very different institutions, in very different countries, in very different regions. And I think when we say open science, it means it means something different, not completely different. I think we all know what it means in a general sense, but what it means then for us in our context, it's different. And I think we should accept that and stay in dialogue, so that we can learn from each other and go step by step. It doesn't make sense to try to jump the next 3 steps up. This will not work. It will work like to go step by step. This is the one thing, and the other thing is it is a benefit. So following open science is a benefit, and I think this should be stated and emphasized all the time. It's a benefit for everybody, and that's not context sensitive actually. This is something we all can take with us and then just see how we can support each other by doing the next step.
Thank you, Julia. Karl, please.
Thank you. I think to be very concrete, if you're in charge of a doctoral program or know someone who's in charge of a doctoral program, make them include a module on open science. If you're in charge or you know someone who's doing research funding, make them include a module on research on open science. If you're in charge of doctoral supervision or you're working with junior colleagues, emphasize open science as both Joeri and Eva have done already. If you're an early career researcher, realize that we are driving the development as well. Everyone is, and early career researchers have a legitimate and important role in driving that development, and that the incremental improvements that we do in our everyday work make a difference for the larger research system. And everyone can do something, but we need to get the system to recognize it, because that's when everyone's small parts actually translate into traction. That was a very long sentence, but I do think it was one sentence.
Thank you very much. And Pavlo, please.
I'd like to repeat Alexander's thought from the previous discussion. He told that probably in the future all science processes will be open, so we will not recognize science and open science as different notions. I think that Ukraine goes this way.
Thank you very much. We're just a few minutes over time, but I think it was really worthwhile. Were really interesting discussions. Let's give a big hand of applause to our speakers. And with that, I would like to close the session with 2 quick quotes that we heard from our panelists. Research builds the streets, as in the pathway to the future. And for that, we need young shepherds to lead the flock. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Sebastian. Thanks, dear colleagues. Actually, everyone was following what was discussed closely. So thanks for this beautiful panel. And we continue with the rest of the forum. It was a pleasure. Believe me that your presence here in Kyiv was almost physically, could be felt almost physically, and good luck to you, and let's continue our work. So let's keep in touch. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.